"I just wanted to sing even if no one listened," Paul Potts once admitted. That voice carried him from the back corner of a phone shop to the grandest stage in Britain. But behind the victory lay loneliness, long days of self-doubt, and the fear that he was only a fleeting miracle. Amid the thunderous applause, he still carried an unease no one could see. This was the journey of a man who once fell, then rose again with nothing but music and the belief that a voice could save a life. In March 2007, Paul Potts appeared at the Wales Millennium Centre in Cardiff to audition. At the time, he was still managing a phone store, living modestly and largely unknown. The decision to register came from a quiet urge to test the voice he had abandoned years before. On June 9th, Paul's performance was broadcast on television. He chose Puccini's aria, Nessun Dorma, a piece considered a challenge even for professional singers. As the melody began, the hall seemed to hold its breath. When he finished, the entire audience stood, and Simon Cowell simply said, "It was simply incredible." That broadcast spread instantly across the UK. From an unfamiliar face, Paul Potts became a household name featured in newspapers and online forums everywhere. Media outlets described him as a symbol of hope, a man who turned the impossible into reality. On June 14th in the semifinals, Paul performed "Time to Say Goodbye." His voice grew stronger, more emotional, and more confident than in the first round. He topped the audience vote and advanced directly to the final 3 days later. On the night of June 17, 2007, Paul returned with Nessun Dorma. The stage glowed, the music surged through the tense atmosphere. When he reached the final high note, the audience rose to their feet in endless applause. Paul won decisively with over 2 million votes, a record at the time. That victory not only brought him a $100,000 prize, but also opened the door to a new career. Paul signed with Psycho Columbia and Sony Germany, officially entering the professional music world. Within weeks, he became the focus of British and European media. In July that year, his debut album, One Chance, was released. It quickly topped the UK charts and ranked high in Canada, Australia, and South Korea. Sales surpassed 1 million copies, turning Paul Potts from a TV talent show winner into the first artist in the program's history to land an international record deal. Success arrived so quickly that Paul admitted it took months to adjust. In a later interview, he said, "I just wanted to sing. Everything else felt unreal." The brief remark revealed a simple truth: he had never prepared for fame, only for the song. After his victory, Paul appeared constantly on television, concerts, and award ceremonies. Many saw him as the embodiment of the British dream, where anyone, regardless of background, could succeed through genuine talent. From the moment he stepped on stage, Paul Potts's life was transformed. He left the phone shop behind and entered the international performance circuit, where schedules and spotlights consumed his days. The man once called an amateur became the face of a new era of television. That explosive triumph was only the beginning. Before the lights could fade, Paul Potts had already embarked on a tougher journey, one where fame, pressure, and opportunity intertwined. It was then that the world began to witness the rise of a global musical phenomenon. Global expansion. After his resounding victory, Paul Potts immediately entered the whirlwind of global performances. From 2007 to 2015, he held more than 1,500 shows across 45 countries. Each night on stage was a test of endurance for the tenor voice that had once astonished the world because of its humble beginnings. In 2008, Paul became the face of Deutsche Telekom's advertising campaign in Germany. The short film depicting his journey from a phone salesman to a celebrated singer spread rapidly. The story resonated with millions, becoming a symbol of perseverance and self-belief. The campaign's success helped Paul expand his reach across Europe. Audiences in Germany, Italy, and Poland embraced him as a popular phenomenon. During this period, Paul focused on refining his personal style, blending classical opera with contemporary pop sensibilities. In 2009, Paul released the album Passione, marking a professional evolution. 2 years later came Cinema Paradiso, infused with cinematic tones and nostalgic emotion. By 2014, Home was released, reflecting the stability and confidence of his chosen artistic path. Also in 2009, Paul Potts was honored at Germany's Echo Awards as Best International Male Artist. The accolade affirmed his standing in the European music scene. From then on, Paul was no longer just the Britain's Got Talent winner, but a truly recognized opera pop artist. His career during this period extended beyond live performances. He frequently appeared on television programs, charity events, and collaborations with major orchestras. Everywhere he went, audiences remembered the humble man whose powerful, sincere voice continued to inspire. As the media began discussing the amateur legend, some outlets questioned whether Paul had truly been a non-professional before competing. In one interview, he answered firmly, "I had paid for lessons, but I had never performed any concert for pay, and was therefore an amateur." The statement silenced all doubts. Rather than relying on fame, Paul focused on proving his ability through action. He practiced daily, studied classical works in greater depth, and broadened his international collaborations. Those quiet, consistent efforts helped him maintain a steady position in a fast-changing music industry. This was the era when Paul Potts defined his personal identity, an artist who rose through genuine skill without gimmicks or showmanship. He understood that fame was only the beginning, while art remained the ultimate destination. Fame opened new doors, but also brought challenges no one could anticipate. Amid an intense schedule and ever-growing expectations, Paul began to confront his own limits. What followed would completely reshape the way he moved forward in his career. Turning point after the spotlight. In March 2008, Paul Potts left his job as a store manager to devote himself entirely to music. That decision marked a new chapter in his career, freeing him from the constraints of daily work. Paul called it a moment of liberation, the point when he accepted risk to pursue a truly professional path. After years of touring, Paul began to reflect on the journey from Bristol to the television stage. In 2013, he published his memoir, One Chance, a Memoir, recounting his rise from an ordinary life and the psychological strain that came with success, arriving too fast, too unexpectedly. That same year, the film One Chance premiered, inspired directly by his life. Paul served as a musical consultant, ensuring each note captured the reality of his own experience. He once said, "It allowed me to see myself from another angle." The remark expressed his gratitude for seeing his past portrayed truthfully. The film not only helped audiences understand Paul Potts's journey, but also reminded him of the value of perseverance. After its success, Paul dedicated more time to training, refining his technique, and collaborating with experienced conductors. He transitioned from a television phenomenon to a true performing artist. In 2016, Paul took on 2 leading opera roles, Cavaradossi in Tosca and Steuermann in Der Fliegende Holländer. It was the first time he had been cast as a principal performer in professional productions. Critics noted his matured tone, deeper emotion, and improved technical control, far removed from the TV sensation image of the past. From then on, Paul appeared regularly in European theaters, performing with orchestras in Germany, Italy, and Poland. He avoided media attention, focusing solely on his craft. Each role became a new challenge, demanding both physical and mental preparation. For Paul, discipline remained the foundation for longevity in music. By 2024, Paul joined an opera project in Tokyo, performing as Faust in a 16-show run at the Orb Theatre. Japanese media described him as an artist of remarkable maturity, performing with focus and exceptional discipline. For Paul Potts, this milestone proved that his artistic evolution had never stopped. Amid the intense schedule, Paul maintained a peaceful private life. He and his wife Julie Ann, married since 2003, lived together in Wales. The couple kept away from the media, spending their time on family and community projects. Paul spoke of his wife with deep respect. "She's the quiet reason I keep singing." Paul chose stability over fame. He devoted himself to teaching collaborative performances and maintaining vocal technique. For him, success no longer lay in ticket sales, but in standing on stage with freedom without the pressure to prove anything anymore. As the applause gradually faded, Paul Potts did not step back. He continued moving forward toward a future where his voice would mature with time. In this phase, the public began to see the most enduring version of him. Irreplaceable legacy. In 2025, the video of Paul Potts's first audition on YouTube surpassed 197 million views. Nearly 2 decades later, that moment is still shared every day, becoming a symbol of faith and perseverance. The enduring life of an old video proves that genuine emotion never loses its power. Paul Potts continues to perform regularly across Europe, the United States, and Asia. Though his fame is long established, he never stops reinventing himself. He is currently working on a new album that blends classical opera with contemporary music, something he calls a project of maturity. It is not merely an experiment in sound, but a dialogue with himself. Recent performances reveal a shift in his style. He sings with less display and more restraint, channeling deeper emotion. His voice now carries years of experience. Each note lands precisely, not as a show of technique, but as a refined form of expression. Despite a career of nearly 20 years of success, Paul maintains a modest life. His net worth is estimated at around £10 million, mostly from royalties and touring. Still, Paul once said in an interview, "I measure success by being able to sing, not by money." For him, the greatest joy lies in singing every day without depending on media attention. Alongside his performances, Paul Potts is often invited to serve as a mentor on various music competitions. He teaches contestants about technique, breath control, and stage composure. Speaking to young audiences, he said, "It's about not giving up, and it's about believing in yourself." The concise statement carries a philosophy that has guided him since the beginning of his musical path. Paul does not only teach technique, but also helps his students understand the value of genuine emotion in music. He often emphasizes that the stage is not a place to show off talent, but a place to tell a story through song. His simplicity and thought has made him a model of an artist who remains grounded beneath the spotlight. Beyond the stage, Paul is active in community work. He organizes opera workshops for young people in South Korea and Italy, encouraging them to blend tradition with modern creativity. Paul believes that opera truly lives only when it is handed to a new generation, those bold enough to challenge convention. His consistency and discipline have made Paul a symbol of endurance. He does not seek attention through statements or trends. For him, perseverance itself is success. Each year he spends months on vocal training, maintaining what he calls the key to lasting survival. In the music world, Paul Potts is regarded as one of the rare reality show winners to sustain a professional standard. Critics note that he has moved beyond the label of competition winner to become an independent artist, steadfast in his own path, a rarity in an ever-shifting entertainment industry. To audiences, Paul is not just the man who won Britain's Got Talent in 2007. He represents an ordinary person who dared to dream, to pursue, and to persist. Every time he steps onto a stage, the applause is not only for his voice, but for the life story that has inspired people for nearly 2 decades. The year 2025 marks a special milestone, 18 years since Paul first stepped onto that stage and left the world speechless. Now, he no longer needs to prove anything. What Paul Potts leaves behind is more than recordings or numbers online. It is a lasting lesson in perseverance, in the power of a voice that stays true to itself. Before becoming an inspiration to millions, Paul Potts lived a quiet life where everything began with a small dream. And it was that dream, nurtured by faith and persistence, that carried him farther than any miracle ever could. The quiet beginning. Paul Potts was born on October 13, 1970 in Kingswood, Bristol, and grew up in the Fish Ponds district. He was raised in peaceful streets where working-class families lived. His family was not well off, but valued hard work and honesty, two qualities that would shape his character for life. His father, Roland, was a bus driver. His mother, Yvonne Higgins, worked as a cashier at a local supermarket. Their modest life taught Paul the worth of labor and personal effort. In that small home, music rarely played, but the quiet became the ground on which dreams began to form. Paul had two older brothers and one sister people who always loved and protected him. Paul's childhood was closely tied to St. Mary Redcliffe and Temple School. There he joined the church choir, and for the first time felt the power of collective singing. It was there that Paul discovered his passion for music, though at the time he was shy, soft-spoken, and avoided crowds. His high school years were not easy. Paul often said he was bullied because of his appearance and introverted nature. In an interview he shared, "My intention wasn't to commit suicide, but I wanted people to feel an emotion towards me that wasn't hate." The statement revealed deep emotional pain, but also a longing to be understood. Music became his only refuge. Paul sang to find balance in his mind, and whenever he stepped into the church, he felt heard. Though not from an artistic family, the faith and emotion in every hymn quietly shaped the musician he would become. After graduation, Paul began working ordinary jobs like anyone else. He worked at Waitrose, Tesco, Debenhams, and eventually became a store manager at the Carphone warehouse. The long hours of standing and talking with customers taught him about people, but also buried his dream of singing. During short breaks, Paul would quietly listen to classical music and practice his voice. Music, though just a small part of his life, always held a special place in his heart. Friends recalled that whenever he had time, Paul would sing familiar arias as a reminder that his passion was still alive. Paul performed with amateur opera groups in Bristol and Bath. Roles such as Don Basilio, Don Carlos, Don Ottavio, and Radames helped him develop vocal discipline and gain stage experience. The shows took place in small halls with few spectators, but for Paul, they were real classrooms. He learned to control his breath emotions and expressions under the gaze of an audience. Each performance brought him closer to his dream, even though no one imagined he would one day become a global phenomenon. Just as things began to settle, life tested him with a serious bicycle accident. He fractured his collarbone and injured his neck, forcing him to stop singing for a long time. Around the same period, Paul underwent surgery for a benign adrenal tumor, which further weakened his health. Months of recovery nearly broke his spirit, but once again, music pulled him back. When he regained his strength, he began singing at small concerts, not for fame or money, but for the joy of using his voice. Step by step, Paul regained his form. He continued performing in local communities, practicing daily, and rebuilding confidence on stage. Though still an amateur, the experience and resilience he gained were preparing him for something greater. In 2006, when news spread about Britain's Got Talent, Paul Potts saw an opportunity. He wasn't sure he was ready, but something told him this was a turning point he couldn't ignore. One thought echoed in his mind: try once more, no matter the outcome. The years before fame became the foundation of Paul's story. It was through those silent days, working behind counters, practicing without an audience, and enduring physical pain that he forged the strength to face the lights ahead. Without that period, there would never have been the phenomenon of Paul Potts. And then destiny arrived. When Paul stepped onto the Britain's Got Talent stage in 2007, everything he had built over 3 decades, pain, perseverance, and passion, erupted in a single moment. From that point on, his voice not only changed his own life, but also touched millions around the world. From a bullied boy in Bristol to the man who silenced the world with an aria. Paul Potts's journey stands as proof that determination can make the impossible possible. He did not enter music seeking fame, but to preserve his right to dream and to sing. More than 15 years after that victory, Paul still stands on stage singing with the same honesty and heart. He is no longer a sensation, but a testament to the power of faith and endurance. Paul Potts has shown that sometimes a sincere voice alone can change a life. If you are inspired by true stories like Paul Potts's journey, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video to spread the message of hope and resilience. Every view you give helps us continue bringing stories that touch the heart, where music and humanity come together to create something extraordinary.